There are 1,440 minutes in a day. That's 86,400 seconds. In that amount of time, anything can happen in a child's life. In 24 hours, much happens in the day of teaching as well. In a day teaching, positive and negative choices are made. Light bulbs go on, light bulbs go off. Wounds are healed, whether they be emotional or physical. Deadlines are met, inspiration is found, and children find their voice. Also in a day teaching, decisions on school closings are made. Budgets are tightened. Principals search for funds. Policymakers debate, go into closed session, find a decision, and enact legislation that affects everything that goes on in that classroom without a single teacher's voice. In a day, teachers work profound miracles to move their students to find their voice. As we help our students to find their voice, let us teachers and collective community now find ours. Now, currently there is a disconnect between policymakers, the education system, and community understanding. This isn't to pass blame on one group or another, but merely to point out that when the conversation does not connect between each group, something is lost. If the conversation isn't fluid, if it isn't holistic, if all those parties represented are not heard, the process loses its power as well as its voice. In a day when decisions on schools closings are made, principals try as they might, work to be heard, search for funds, yet are not heard, and they lose their voice. The teachers, once employed there, weathered and ignored, consequently lose their voice. And the parents who believe in those administrators and teachers to guide their child, then lose their voice, as no honest or real answers are available. And the children who went to that school are now forced to travel outside their neighborhood through areas infested with negativity, violence, crime, or plight. Those students now run the risk of losing their voice and so much more. However, there is a silver lining. Great achievements in finding voice are within all of us. Sometimes we just have to look between the seams. I'm reminded of a student of mine. His name is Stephen. Now, Stephen came to me with the knowledge that he would be repeating his current grade, as well as a laundry list of baggage, such as low test scores, no motivation, and anger issues. In essence, all the reasons why this child had lost his voice. Well, like any of us in here would do, I looked for what made Stephen tick. I knew he needed an outlet. One day, we started a unit on poetry, and Stephen gravitated towards it. I expressed to him that not only could he be the reader, but he could also be the author. Poetry could be the avenue Stephen traveled to express himself. Well, I'm happy to announce that Stephen not only jumped in with 2 feet, but he continues it to this day. Through this newfound medium, Stephen began to express himself. He wrote about how his days outside the school were and his interpretations of each day. And as he did this, Stephen began to be engaged in school again. He asked those important questions. Stephen not only led by example, those test scores started to rise. And most importantly, Stephen found his voice. Now, in order to empower our students, we must all be empowered. In order to bring voice to the system, us policymakers, teachers, and collective community must move that empowerment forward. So how do we do that? How do we move the policymakers, the educators, and the collective community to find their voice and move forward? Well, motivation in teaching is not done from the top down, nor from the bottom up, but through communication and collaboration. the same should be said about enacting new policies. When those policymakers and those educators, as well as the community, are all on the same page, the things created are more powerful for our students. For policymakers, for example, come see us teachers in schools in action, not just for a day or a photo op, but for an extended amount of time. Get to know what a real classroom looks like. Visit those schools that are succeeding and those that are not. And then ask us the question, what can make a day better? For those teachers in the room, this is your time as well. I know there's a lot of great groups working towards this, and I commend them so much. But let's take today to re-inspire ourselves. Let's show how truly invested we are and that our voice matters. We are the bridge. Let's extend it between policymakers and our students. And to those parents, those business people, and the collective community, this is your time as well. When policymakers and educators begin to collaborate, sit in and ask the questions you need answered. As you take ownership of the process, I promise you, the policies created will be more fruitful for our children. And even if you're not ready to scream it from a mountaintop or come up beside me, your voice can still be heard. Why not reach out to your child's school and ask how you could be of service? Or reach out to the neighborhood school and ask about donating books or volunteering your time. And here's the best part. When we all do that, when those policymakers, educators, and the collective community are all on the same page, we're able to empower our students and help them to find their voice. And when our students find their voice, they will be more successful. They will not be afraid to try. They will not lose hope when they fail. They will lead us into the future. They will do all these things because the people who are guiding them have empowered them. In a day, much can happen and does. Policies are created. Schools are closed. Great teachers search for a way to inspire. Parents search for solutions. And our children wait for an answer. In a day, everything matters in the life of a child. There must come a day when the same belief that moves us to help our children to find their voice can translate to all of us then finding ours. Everyone. Today can be that day. We have 1,440 minutes or 86,400 seconds. Thank you.